I've talked to a lot of friends who are Trump fans, and they initially would say, well, I haven't heard her speak. I don't know if she can stand up to scrutiny. I don't know her policies. And what I've always told them is be patient. She's pro-business, that she can think on her feet, that she's responsive, that she's thorough. She's not impulsive like Donald Trump.
Mark Cuban is working overtime to help get Kamala Harris elected as the next president of the United States. But in doing so, he actually ended up comparing Donald Trump's economic policies to that of Bernie Sanders.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our honest reporting. You do it at tyt.com/team, and we love you for it.
How does that make any sense? Well, let's hear him make his case.
On a recent Harris campaign call, you compared policy proposals made by Trump to those from independent Senator Bernie Sanders, who's a socialist. What do you mean?
Well, it was a race for socialism, right? Bernie said that credit card companies should cap their rates, their interest rates at 15%. Donald Trump, being the socialist that he is, had to beat Bernie. So Donald Trump went out and recommended that interest rate caps be set to 10%. The fact that he's even suggesting price controls and price caps is socialism 101. You haven't heard that from the vice president. You have heard that from Donald Trump.
So what I'm getting is that Mark Cuban is so out of touch that he thinks that what he just said is going to hurt Donald Trump.
Right.
And that what Donald Trump would want to do with capping interest rates for credit cards at 10%, by the way, which is not a small amount, that's socialism, which obviously it's not.
It is not.
Yeah, so first of all, there used to be laws against usury, and what that meant is you charge too much interest that is unpayable. That was called loan sharking, and that was a serious crime that mobsters and gangsters did. So they took away those laws. Now you could charge almost anything you want, and they'll charge 200% interest, et cetera, which no one could possibly pay back. To be fair, Donald Trump does know that because he took out a 14% interest rate for the Taj Mahal, one of his casinos in Atlantic City. It bankrupted that casino and then caused the dominoes, which caused all three of his casinos in Atlantic City to fall. So he knows 14% is not doable, even if you're a so-called billionaire. So, but the most important thing is Mark Cuban and the rest of the establishment not realizing that people want lower interest payments on their credit card payments.
Thank you.
That's not complicated.
No,
You'd have to be
socialism. It's socialism, Cenk.
But again, when Kamala Harris talks about fighting inflation, which is price gouging, inflation is what we call it. And when you have corporate record profits, it is just price gouging. And Kamala Harris talking about having price caps on goods to help the American consumer, that gets called socialism. But when I first heard Cuban, who I applaud for trying to beat Donald Trump, God bless him. But when I heard he was comparing Trump to Bernie, I thought, oh, well, that must be because Donald Trump launched his campaign in 2015, campaigning on single-payer healthcare. Let's not forget, Donald Trump talked about it in all the debates in 2015, the advantages of single-payer healthcare before he realized he had a chance to win, and now he calls that socialism. I do think that Cuban is looking for excuses to give aristocrats and oligarchs a reason to bail Trump out. I don't think Dick Cheney is going to be the thing that gives right-wing people the excuse they need to bail on Trump. I think it's going to be the tariffs. I think it's going to be the insane stupidity that tariffs will somehow pay for childcare. That's going to give a lot of evil rich men an excuse to cut Trump loose.
Yeah, so Trump did say that, and that makes, look, I'm actually a lot warmer to tariffs than everyone in the Democratic side, which is shocking because Democrats used to be in favor of tariffs and Republicans used to be like 100% free trade. So things are kind of realigning in a weird way. But I will say what Trump said about tariffs paying for childcare in America made no sense.
Yeah, Nikki Haley's using that to cut him loose again.
Yeah, I don't know why he said that, so stupid. But to your point, there was an interesting exchange on CNN where they also said that Donald Trump's economic policies seem more liberal than Kamala Harris's economic policies. Let's take a look at that.
Tariffs aren't unique to President Trump. President Biden has tariffs in place. He's actually looking to potentially implement more. Where do you come out on? Is there a good tariff, a bad tariff?
Well, part of it is you don't just throw around the idea of just tariffs across the board, and that's part of the problem with Donald Trump. Frankly, I'm going to, and I say this in all sincerity, he's just not very serious about how he thinks about some of these issues. And one must be serious and have a plan, and a real plan that's not just about some talking point ending in an exclamation at a political rally, but actually putting the thought into what will be the return on the investment and what will be the economic impact on everyday people.
I think one thing we should note is that she didn't actually answer what would be a good tariff and what would be a bad tariff. Kind of getting back to that idea, Wolf, that Americans aren't necessarily hearing the type of specificity from her that they would want to.
So I agree with the analysis at the end of that clip, but I also just want to note, look, Donald Trump didn't implement tariffs across the board. He implemented tariffs on China, and then Biden came in, and this is what the question was about, and he doubled down on those tariffs. And I am actually in favor of that, and I know there's a lot of debate about it, but I actually do want to hear more from Kamala Harris about, okay, well, where do you think tariffs make sense? Because you think that they could make sense,
Sure.
But you aren't being specific, and would you repeal the tariffs that were implemented by Biden or expanded by Biden?
But you would agree that tariff wars don't make sense. That's what got Herbert Hoover into trouble.
Yeah, look, obviously there's a way to do it, but I think free trade has some serious consequences, and Trump was the first presidential candidate in many decades who at least acknowledged that. That did lead to jobs being outsourced. Yeah.
So look, I don't love tariffs, and I think that that's probably not the best way. But you never know, and I've said this before, like you've got to be reciprocal. So when China says, oh yeah, we should get rid of tariffs, but only you, not us, that's not acceptable. So you have to find a way to reciprocate them. But look, guys, is Kamala Harris is more likely to find the right balance? Of course, right? Donald Trump but the most important thing you have to know is neither one of them is going to do any of these things, okay? So Trump might do some form of tariffs, but the numbers are all made up. So like on the credit card one, Kamala Harris would maybe say cap it at 15%, right? And Trump goes, oh yeah, 10%. He's not going to do that. He's a fake populist. Everything that he proposed that was populist, single payer healthcare, this credit card thing, the no tax on the tip wages, they're all lies. He's not going to do any of them. How do I know? He was president already for 4 long years. He had a time to do all those things. He never did any of the things that he promised.
He made Mexico pay for the wall. I mean, sorry, the troops. Sorry, you're going, Jake.
Yeah, he forgot about the wall with 6 months left, and that's to his core of his base, right? There's only one thing he remembered to do: lower corporate tax rates, right? So, but now back to the politics of this. I think Kamala Harris is playing this wrong. And so look, I think Mark Cuban's a relatively reasonable guy. I got no beef with Mark Cuban at all. But when she asked him to go all over cable news, obviously the campaign did, right? This is coordinated, he's not just going rogue. And tell everybody, I'm pro-business, I'm pro-corporations, I'm pro-corporations. And Donald Trump is too liberal, and he's too much of a Bernie Sanders, and he's too populist. You're helping him.
Yep.
You're helping him with his fake populism. He doesn't mean any of that stuff. How did Kamala Harris wind up going from losing to gaining the lead? She picked Tim Walz, and she released an economically populist agenda, the one that we were all excited about at the convention. She gains the lead, now she's looking to give it away. So this is bragging about how pro-corporate you are, terrible idea. Bragging about how pro-Dick Cheney you are, terrible idea. She's done it multiple times.
Bragging about how pro-Dick Cheney she is?
Yeah.
I mean, the corporate thing I get, because this is how Democrats get elected. They convince everyone we're not liberals, and you throw all the liberals under the parade float. It's the oldest thing. Joe Biden's the only example in my lifetime where a guy went more to the left to become president. Kamala Harris is doing the same playbook we saw Barack Obama and Bill Clinton have to do.
Actually, okay, so you're noticing something. I actually do not think that Biden campaigned as further to the left.
No, I think he got dragged there.
But he did get dragged there. What Kamala Harris is now branding herself as I'm not as far left as Biden.
Exactly.
Right? And so I agree that is an attempt to ease the nerves of like the business community that are like, oh my God, is she really gonna try to tax unrealized gains? She's not gonna try to do that. That's ridiculous, and I don't even think that would be a good policy if you're looking for wealthy people to pay their fair share in taxes. But the thing that I will say is, look, I don't know. To answer your question about Cheney, on 2 different occasions after he had endorsed her, she talked about how honored she was in the context of one of the interviews. She bragged about it. I do not think that's a good tactic. I would not be honored to be endorsed by Dick Cheney, a literal war criminal. Let's not align ourselves with Bush-era neocons. That's not a good idea.
Yes.
But she is presenting herself as more moderate and more pro-business than we've seen from other Democratic candidates in recent election cycles.
Yeah, I'm worried she's gonna start slipping in the polls. And this feels like the old Biden team, be it the not doing enough media. Like, so she did this one. Why did she do Stephanie Ruhle? Because Stephanie Ruhle said on Bill Maher's show just a couple of days ago that Kamala Harris shouldn't have to do any interviews. So Kamala Harris was like, oh, she's gonna give me the softest interview in the world, so I'll just go do that one. Go make your case. I don't know why there has, I do know, the Biden team is not smart. So
this is the time for bold policy proposals that turn people on and make people want to show up and vote, even if you don't mean it. This is the time for bold policy proposals that when they fail, you can say, oh, those darn Republicans blocked me from doing it. I don't know why I'm seeing Mark Cuban on my TV every day and not Tim Walz. I don't know what happened to Tim Walz because he was, I enjoyed the Tim Walz show. I can't find it on my TV right now. So they need to get out there and just go bold with this. But the most important thing to remember is, just like every other Democratic president of our lifetime, the biggest sin would be if people on the left, liberals, progressives, anti-evil, you know who you are, checked out. Oh, there's a Democrat in the office now, we'll fight for Roe, I can go and watch the Kardashians. The only thing that works is voting for these Democrats and then holding their feet to the fire and kicking their butts every single day to fulfill the agenda they promised. We have to stay engaged 100% on these Democrats to make them do what they promised, because in my lifetime, guys, that's the only thing I've seen that works.
Yeah, so last super quick point on not if media. You go on, you make your case and you get more voters. And I guess they were worried about Kamala Harris, but she's done fine in the interviews. She's done plenty fine enough that I would send her to do 10 more, 20 more. And even if she slips up in 1 or 2, because she's human, at least you made your case in 19 out of 20 interviews. And to your point about Tim Walz, I did a tweet yesterday, hashtag free Tim Walz. Where is he? Why did you put him in Joe Biden's basement? I mean, let him out. He was super popular.
Don't be afraid of him being too popular, folks. Don't be afraid of that.
Well, he did some progressive economic policies in Minnesota, and I'm sure that
he's doing tons of rallies. I don't see him on TV.
Well, I mean, we got to ease the nerves of the business community that's very worried. I think that's what it's really about, to be honest with you.
Thanks for watching the video, guys. We also love it if you hit the join button below, because that makes you a member, and members allow us to be independent, honest. We can be as progressive as we want, no corporate media influence, and that's all because of you guys. We love doing the show with our members. Hit the join button, become one of the Young Turks.